Thank you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Benedictine Sisters of Chicago's lecture series on Living Laudato Si, which calls us to respond to the cry of the environment, of human communities, and of our world. We are coming to you today from St. Scholastica Chapel in Rogers Park. Living with gratitude and reverence for all the gifts which God bestows on us is a way of life for Benedictines. The call to care for our earth is poignant in our days. The call to care for our earth and all who dwell on this earth. We are truly grateful to our guest speakers today, Michael Terrien and Jerome McDonnell, for sharing their time and talent with us, as Michael will present Living Laudato Si through an interview with Jerome McDonnell. Michael Terrien is an Oblate of St. Benedict. He serves on the Vatican's Laudato Si Action Platform for Dioceses and Parishes Working Group, and is the past chair of CADEIO Care of Creation Committee. Additionally, Mr. Terrien has served on the board of the Parliament of World Religions and continues on their Climate Action Task Force. He was also project director of the Archdiocese of Chicago's Office for Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs. Interviewing Michael will be Jerome McDonnell, whom many will recognize as a former broadcaster at WBEZ for almost 4 decades. Jerome champions the cause of protecting our Great Lakes through an ethical response to the challenges our waterways face. He also strongly promotes social justice and global activism. Jerome is a very patient man, having been invited to be the recipient of our Spirit of St. Benedict Award back in 2020, which will finally be presented at our testimonial dinner on Wednesday, June 8th, this year, 2022. Please contact Joanne Spada here at the monastery if you are interested in attending. And now, without further delay, I present Michael Terrien as interviewed by Jerome McDonnell.
Thank you, Sister Judith, and I'm really grateful to be here. I'm happy to be here, and I'm completing 2 years of planning on this. It kept getting more elaborate as we went along, and I contacted Siobhan and Joanne and started working on this, and I said, hey, you guys, you should meet my friend Michael. I'll bring Michael over, and we could talk about Laudato Si. And so that is how we landed on this program. Then I'm going to do the subsequent program. Then I'm going to come to the dinner, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody better as we go along. And I've got to tell you, I'm going to let Michael introduce himself, and Michael wants to start with a prayer and everything. But Michael and I have been friends for a long time, like 20-some years, his organization, Play for Peace, was on the program Worldview that I did. And we got to know each other, I started participating in events. And next thing I knew, my wife was on the board of Play for Peace, and I was bringing casserole over to his house all the time. And now, so if we drift off into talking about our kids and Michael's new grandchild, you'll understand what happened. But Michael, why don't you start us off?
It's great. Well, first, I want to say it's a blessing to be here together today, and it's a blessing to be doing this with my dear friend Jerome. It truly is. And if it would be okay, in our Benedictine tradition, I thought we could, or at Labora, if we could start in prayer and do it as a Lectio, if you will, a little modified Lectio, from a reading from Laudato Si. That's okay. And in my little bag here, material. And I love that we're here in the chapel, the tabernacle, and the Eucharist. And so I invite us to do, so we pray all things in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It is in the Eucharist that all that has been created finds its greatest exaltation. Grace, which tends to manifest itself tangibly, found unsurpassable expression when God himself became man and gave himself as food for his creatures. The Lord, in the culmination of the mystery of the Incarnation, chose to reach our intimate depths through a fragment of matter. He comes not from above, but from within. He comes that we might find him in this world of ours. In the Eucharist, fullness is already achieved. It is the living center of the universe, the overflowing core of love and of inexhaustible life. Joined to the incarnate Son, present in the Eucharist, the whole cosmos gives thanks to God. Indeed, the Eucharist is itself an act of cosmic love. Yes, cosmic, because even when it is celebrated on the humble altar of a country church, the Eucharist is always in some ways celebrated on the altar of the world. The Eucharist joins heaven and earth. It embraces and penetrates all creation. The world which came forth from God's hands returns to him in blessed and undivided adoration. In the bread of the Eucharist, creation is projected towards divinization, towards the holy wedding feast, towards unification with the Creator himself. Thus, the Eucharist is also a source of light and motivation for our concerns for the environment, directing us to be stewards of all creation. It is in the Eucharist that all that has been created finds its greatest exaltation. Grace, which tends to manifest itself tangibly, found unsurpassable expression when God himself became man and gave himself as food for his creatures. The Lord, in the culmination of the mystery of the incarnation, chose to reach our intimate depths through a fragment of matter. He comes not from above, but from within. He comes that we might find him in this world of ours. In the Eucharist, fullness is already achieved. It is the living center of the universe, the overflowing core of love and of inexhaustible life. Joined to the incarnate Son, present in the Eucharist, the whole cosmos gives thanks to God. Indeed, the Eucharist is itself an act of cosmic love. Yes, cosmic. Because even when it is celebrated on the humble altar of a country church, the Eucharist is always in some way celebrated on the altar of the world. The Eucharist joins heaven and earth. It embraces and penetrates all creation. The world which came forth from God's hands returns to him in blessed and undivided adoration in the bread of the Eucharist. Creation is projected towards divinization, towards the holy wedding feast, towards unification with the Creator himself. Thus, the Eucharist is also a source of light and motivation for our concerns for the environment, directing us to be stewards of all creation. It is in the Eucharist that all that has been created finds its greatest exaltation. Grace, which tends to manifest itself tangibly, found unsurpassable expression when God himself became man and gave himself as food for his creatures. The Lord, in the culmination of the mystery of the incarnation, chose to reach our intimate depths through a fragment of matter. He comes not from above, but from within. He comes that we might find him in this world of ours. In the Eucharist, fullness is already achieved. It is the living center of the universe, the overflowing core of love and inexhaustible life. Joined to the incarnate Son, present in the Eucharist, the whole cosmos gives thanks to God. Indeed, the Eucharist is itself an act of cosmic love. Yes, cosmic, because even when it is celebrated on the humble altar of a country church, the Eucharist is always in some way celebrated on the altar of the world. The Eucharist joins heaven and earth. It embraces and penetrates all creation. The world which came forth from God's hands returns to him in blessed and undivided adoration. In the bread of the Eucharist, creation is projected towards divinization, towards the holy wedding feast, towards unification with the Creator himself. Thus, the Eucharist is also a source of light and motivation for our concerns for the environment, directing us to be stewards of all creation. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed thou art among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Michael, what resonated with you about that passage? After hearing it several times there, the words that I was left with was cosmic love, universalism, stewardship. I liked those kept hanging with me. What was it about that? What is it about that passage that hooks you in?
Well, in the spirit of contemplative prayer, today, right now, it's that Christ is imbued in all of creation. That everything comes from and returns to the one true source. And that we are in communion with everything. And I think that's the central message of Laudato Si, is that everything is connected. Everything is a divine gift. And we are called to care for creation.
I wanted you to talk some about what you've been doing to try to implement Laudato Si and make it so that institutions can live Laudato Si. And I hope we'll get to talk a little about towards the end about things we're seeing on the outside, things we're seeing in the world that seem like they are living Laudato Si. But you've been working inside Catholic institutions. Give us the terrain of what you've been doing there.
Well, Laudato Si was promulgated on May 24th, 2015, Pentecost Sunday. And as we know, encyclicals, they become part of the magisterium of the church. There they are. And Laudato Si is unusual because it was written to all of humanity, to everyone, included everyone. And so you write this encyclical given the current state of affairs in our world, and there is an urgency to address the crises that we're faced. So then what do you do with that? What do we do with that as a church? And so in my conversations at the Vatican, it was with conversation with Cardinal Turkson, Cardinal Parolin. Cardinal Turkson served as the prefect for the Dicastery promoting integral human development, and Cardinal Parolin is the Secretary of State, and Pope Francis. And there were conversations about, well, what's next? What do we do about this? Because there's this fierce urgency of addressing the crises that we're facing. And this idea of having a platform emerged, a Laudato Si action platform or a system or a structure that would allow us to work in solidarity throughout the universal church to vivify the teachings of Laudato Si. And I said, well,
has anybody been on the Laudato Si action platform website? About 50%, it looks like.
Yes. And so I asked them, well, where did this idea really come from? They said it was inspired by the Holy Spirit. And so there we are again, the Holy Spirit. And this is really unusual for the church. It hasn't done something like this before. And it comes out of Pope Francis's mission to really bring to life the teachings of the Second Vatican Council in a way that was synodal and involves everyone in the church. So the platform structure, and is everybody here familiar with Laudato Si? Is everybody? So we're not starting from there. Okay, great. It's broken into 7 sectors. So one sector are families, and then you have organizations, and then you have businesses, and then you have religious orders, hospitals, and who am I missing on there? Pardon me? That's right, and the parishes and dioceses, but I'm forgetting one off the top of my head. Schools and universities. So these 7 sectors, and then inviting representatives from these 7 sectors to be involved to help in the design and the development and the implementation of that. So it's very participatory. My sector is the parish and diocese sector. We're also blessed within Chicago with the Sisters of St. Joseph in the area in LaGrange, that some of their sisters are in the religious sector. And then Michael Shook, who's over at Loyola, is spearheading the university sector. So you have this great engagement in the Chicago, in this area, in the implementation of the Laudato Si Action Platform. So the structure for the parishes and dioceses is to, in the Laudato Si, there's in chapter 4, there's the integral ecology, right? And there are those main themes of Laudato Si as an integral ecology. And to take each one of those goals, those themes, and then define goals within those. So there's 7 themes, right? So specifically the themes, if I can pull that out. Environmental ecology, economic ecology, social ecology, cultural ecology, ecology of daily life, principle of the common good, and justice between the generations. So those are the 7 themes of the integral ecology. And what's important here is to note that Laudato Si has erroneously been identified as an environmental encyclical. Yes, it's an environmental encyclical, but it's also a social encyclical. Because of the integral ecology, the nature of what Laudato Si is about, it recognized that they're all interconnected, that everything is connected within these themes, that they can't separate them apart. So often in our culture, we try to reduce things and specialize things, and this thing looks at it as a system. So you need to connect the dots between all of these pieces, integral ecology. So then within that, so well, okay, what do we do in relation to each one of those themes? So what they did is they established goals. And the goals are to respond to the cry of the earth, to respond to the cry of the earth. Ecological economics, because we know that's a lot of how our current systems of operating within the world work. Adoption of sustainable lifestyles, ecological education, ecological spirituality. And this is really where the Benedictine spirituality has a lot to contribute. Our deep tradition can bring an enormous amount to this area. And community resilience and empowerment. So those goals overlay or underpin those or overlay on top of the themes. So again, it's connecting the dots between those goals. Always look at everything as a system, as an integrated whole, because everything is connected. And then the question within the diocese and parishes, and I can speak to this in terms of how we're doing this within the Archdiocese of Chicago. Another hat, I'm serving as a volunteer coordinator of the Care for Creation Ministry for the Archdiocese of Chicago. and we're charged with implementing the Laudato Si action platform then, is then, well, who's responsible for this? Like how, you have the themes, you have the goals, but who carries this out within the parish life? And of course, the answer is everyone, because everything's connected. So one of the challenges has been, is that so often it gets, oh, Laudato Si, it's the green team, right? And we're gonna talk about recycling and putting LED lights, and we get stuck there. Where in fact, Laudato Si should be washing through the entire life of the parish. In our Lectio, in our prayer, that's what it invites us to. It's all a gift from creation, so how can you separate it out? So then the invitation is to invite all the different facets of the parish community into this process of achieving these goals. So whether it's the business side of it, the ministry side of it, the laity side of it, the cleric side of it, everybody has a role as an integrated whole to achieve the goals, to promulgate the teachings of Laudato Si. So you connect the dots. And then it gets granular. Then it gets really specific. So in the design of the platform, there's a core group at the Vatican, and then there's 9 dioceses who are in the parishes and dioceses working group or sector. So Atlanta and Chicago are 2 in the United States. We did a series of focus groups with different demographics to really listen, to hear, to what the needs were in that spirit of subsidiarity, to see what was the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, to hear that. And then to also benchmark against 90 different agencies and institutions and practices around the world as best practices, if we're to achieve a sustainable future together. And then created a matrix of activities. This is like my little bag. And in here, you can see it gets really, there's a lot of little writing. And there's 90 different activities in each of these different goal areas that parishes and dioceses can focus on to achieve, to become more sustainable. Again, integrating all of those different pieces. Creighton University did research, and they were saying that less than 1% of homilies or preaching has been around creation care. So there's a huge gap there, and this is in the United States. So there's a whole role there for the clerics and the religious and our parish communities to look at how do we integrate that more into our liturgy. For example, these are just suggested activities. The model is designed for if the parish or the diocese has other initiatives they would like to do, then to pursue that. The Holy Spirit is calling them to do that, do that. And it's all done within the model of See, Judge, Act. So the first step is to introduce this to the parish, and then enroll the parish, and then on that, then reflect. To say, what are we currently doing with all of these things? And to be able to, if you will, look at all the different facets of parish life or diocesan life, and to say, what are we currently doing? Because then we begin to see, like, wait a minute, we are already doing a lot of what is being talked about in Laudato Si. And to recognize that and see that. And then the next step is to plan. Okay, well, what else do we want to be doing? And what are some specific activities, actions that we want to work on based on our parish? What's realistic? It's going to be doable so we can see success, see the fruit of our ministry, of our work. And then a year later, reflect on that again and say, well, what's working, what's not, and what do we now want to continue to do? So it's a continuous learning process, if you will. So the platform has three pieces to it. One, it's a resource. This is the Vatican platform. You enroll on the Vatican. It's a resource for parishes and dioceses in my sector. Two, it's a tool for planning. And three, it creates community. So we're connecting the dots with everyone because we're all on this journey together. And it's a 7-year journey. So we're just starting this off. It began on November 14th on the World Day of the Poor. That's a very long answer to you.
I knew it, Michael. I prepared 3 questions. I want to ask what this means for parishioners and people in the parishes, and because this is such a gigantic social change document, stop your throwaway culture. That would be a lot for that's a lot for people anywhere in the United States. The throwaway culture is huge.
Yeah.
Repair relations with other communities, repair relations with the poor. It's like there would be, it seems like a lot of religious institutions are kind of geared towards that now, but to really overall cross it with stewardship and get out there and make it happen, it seems like a lot for individuals or parishes.
Yeah. Chapter 1 of Laudato Si kind of presents the problem. It's very based and reality-based. Here's the situation. And it looks at it in the climate change, loss of biodiversity, water, environmental degradation, and the impact that has on humanity. Those are all symptoms. That's not the problem. Our problem is our separation. That we see like we're going to go out and tinker it, like we're in charge. Right? Like we're in control. I love this painting. Where did I put that painting? Right here. My little bag. This is really far, and you're really far away, and this is really small. But what this is a painting by Peter Paul Rubens of Promethean Bound. And in this, it has Prometheus down here, and this eagle, if you remember the story, is tearing out his liver. He's chained to a rock. And his liver then regenerates. And this is continually because he thought he was going to be God and take the fire. Like he was going to be God. And nature said, oh, no, you're not. You're not God. And the interesting thing is that this was painted in 1620. That's when Francis Bacon was doing his important work about to say, wait a minute, the world and nature is this machinery. So if we put it on the rack and we can really study this and look at it and control this, then we can solve all these problems. So it separated us from nature. And it put us in the place of thinking we were God. And that theology and philosophy was no longer needed. And Descartes took that along, right? The Cartesian orientation. So this is really important. Because Pope Francis was a student of Guardini, Romano Guardini, in 1920. In 1986, when he was working on his doctoral work, 1920, Guardini was down at Lake Como and saying everything was designed with nature, and all of a sudden he saw these new buildings that weren't. And so he started to challenge the very notion of modernity. And what did that mean in terms of our relationship with nature and with everything else? So it started to put us as the subject and the other as the object. So if I'm the subject and that's the object, well, that begins to extend to everything and to everyone. So we become selfish. We become to think that we're the center, that we're God. And Pope Francis challenges that in Laudato Si, 67, paragraph 67. We are not God. We are a part of nature. To have dominion over the earth means to have a totally different hermeneutic. It's to care, preserve, and protect creation because we're part of it. And that's what that prayer says. That union. So to your question of these problems, the problem isn't out there, it's in here. It's in our heart. It's the spiritual conversion. That's the whole nature of it. It's calling us to a spiritual conversion, to stand and go, praise be to God. And if our heart is in that space as community, then how can we not but love it? Like a mother would love its newborn child. Like God loves us. Because it's all gift. All we can have is gratitude and to care. Right? So that separation is sin. All Christ calls us to do is to love God, to love each other. To do that, we also have to care for God's creation. Because that's what supports and sustains all of life. Because we're a part of it. We're creatures. Glory be to God. I love this, that you have the ashes for Lent, because Laudato Si begins that remember you are dust, and to dust you shall return. We look at our hands, they're 13.5 billion years old. And we think where we come from, where we're going, and all of those generations after us, and our brothers and sisters who are the plants, the animals, and all of the cosmos at the divine wedding feast.
So you're hoping that this sense of community and spirit can sweep up the people who might be in parishes who are still a little more with Francis Bacon. I'm not going to name names, but Joe Manchin. And there are people who are exploiting and not on the same page that you're talking about. It's Joe Manchin's like a good Catholic and informs his opinions, he says.
We're all on the journey together, right? And we're all each other's brothers and sisters. And so when we're called to the Eucharist, we're calling ourselves to be in communion. When we reflect and discern as a faith, we're called to care for the poor. But who is the poor? So it's dialogue. That's one of the key principles of Laudato Si. It calls us to be in dialogue with everyone. And that's Francis's medium to listen and to have an open heart, an open mind, and to be in dialogue.
Can you give an example of a parish that is doing a really great job of this?
Yes, St. Anne's in Barrington. So how this wheel of it, on this piece here, on the Laudato Si action platform, it has the goals and all of this. So we do this experientially. Over there, we have these cards and we lay them out on the floor and we use strings and we throw them around and we do, everybody's connected. So we do these experiences in the parish.
Michael has a degree in experiential learning. He likes to play games with people to make them learn.
And so it invites people to create common mental models, common language, common sense of unity of purpose. And so St. Anne's, they did that experience, and now we're facilitating it vicarious throughout the diocese. And then they met with the pastor, and the pastor's like, he got it, because he saw this as a unifying agent within the church, within the parish, right? Because we're united, so it doesn't split things apart. The culture wars, in case you've missed it, are alive and well in the United States, right? So it creates a place, a safe place for people to connect and create that sense of unity and bond. So then the parish council got involved. They're like, we get it. And then the school got involved. We got it. And then the liturgists got involved. We get it. So all of a sudden they said, well, how do we all, within our respective functions, integrate this within what we're doing? And then they come back and then they reflect on what's working and what's not, and then they go out and do it again. So it's all integrated. And you can see that there's a cultural transformation happening within the parish. And there are people, there's always a bell-shaped curve, right? There's going to be people that get it immediately, and there's going to be people who are like, what is this, right? And there's going to be that place in the middle where you hit a critical mass where it becomes part of the ethos, part of the way, part of the paradigm, if you will, of the parish life. And so that parish is off and running. But in the Archdiocese, as a way that element of community. So in Vicariate 1, we also did these experiences with a bunch of parishes, and then we connect them together. So they hold monthly Zoom calls. So they're learning from each other. So then they can say, well, what's working and what's not, right? Synodality, solidarity, subsidiarity. Those are the three principles about which we're doing everything. And so it connects the dots with them. So then it becomes a self-organizing system. And then another vicariate, and then another. And some vicariates are further along than others. There's some areas where there's huge gaps. So my brother, Tony Quintanilla, right, whose two sisters went to school here, is a parishioner at St. Nick's in Evanston. I'm sure you're all familiar with St. Nick's. Is one of the vicariate facilitators for Vicariate 2 and 3. And so then we have a team of volunteers who then accompany the parishes in that journey, who help them create the framework from which everybody can be in dialogue and linking and learning together. So it's really based in this learning model. It's all based in learning. We're all learning together in the spirit of solidarity is the right word. And we see it as a 7-year journey. Everyone needs to be flexible. We're also we also have a series on specific content areas like climate change, or we're having a youth climate summit with the high school kids, and that's going to be at St. Viator. And then we're having a young adult integral ecology and care for creation retreat out at Loyola's Woodstock campus, 18 to 39. I almost fit. And so then inviting them to plug in, right? So it's looking at everything as a system and everything is connected. And it's all, Cardinal Supich has, under his leadership. And so he's been a really important voice in the U.S. Catholic Church on the promulgation of the teachings of Laudato Si. But we have a great team of volunteers, and the religious community plays a really important role in this in many, many ways. And again, I can't emphasize enough, the core of this whole thing is to go from a technocratic paradigm, which is very anthropocentric, to have this metanoia, the spiritual and ecological conversion, to an integral ecology paradigm, if you will. And Benedictine spirituality can bring an enormous amount into that spiritual conversion piece.
Michael, I wanted to bring up just one, I want to talk about something about Laudato Si and institutions that are influenced, kind of living the Laudato Si on the outside. But I want to do one more thing on the inside. And I thought it was so cool that the Pope the other day was talking with the Indigenous people in Canada and apologizing for what happened there in the schools. And the doctrine of discovery was discussed, and there is, in Laudato Si, there is a lot of respect for Indigenous care of the land, and how we have to adopt many of the Indigenous ideas that would be helpful in care of our land. This, as a social repair doctrine, is it's powerful, and it would be a very good thing to see things like that happen.
Yes, here's the address of His Holiness Pope Francis meeting with representatives of Indigenous peoples in Canada.
I knew you'd have it with you, Michael.
And here's Laudato Si. This is an example of Laudato Si. You look at this and it says, I have listened attentively to your testimonies. I thank you for having opened your hearts to me. And can I just read a little bit of this? Would you mind? I would like to take up a few of many of the things that have struck me. Let me start from saying that is a part of your traditional wisdom. So one of the major themes of Laudato Si is culture, and respecting the cultures that we currently have instead of everything becoming monoculture, if you will, and based in an economic paradigm that comes from a certain countries.
Growth imperative.
It is not only a turn of phrase, but also a way of viewing life. In every deliberation, we must consider the impact of the seventh generation, intergenerational solidarity. He's citing the wisdom of our Native American brothers and sisters, Indigenous brothers and sisters. I correct myself on that. These are wise words, far-sighted and the exact opposite of what often happens in our own day, when we run after practical and immediate goals without thinking of the future and generations yet to come. A very anthropocentric, short-sighted, technocratic paradigm. For the ties that connect the elderly and the young are essential. They must be cherished and protected lest we lose our historical memory and our very identity. Whenever memory and identity are cherished and protected, we become more human. Again, challenging that mechanistic orientation. In these days, a beautiful image kept coming up. You compared yourself to the branches of a tree Like those branches, you have spread in different directions. You have experienced various times and seasons. You have been buffeted by powerful winds. Yet you have remained solidly anchored to your roots, which you kept strong. In this way, you have continued to bear fruit, for the branches of the tree grow high only if the roots are deep. Really honoring their traditions. I would like to speak of some of these fruits. First, your care for the land, which you see not as a resource to be exploited, but as a gift of heaven. For you, the land preserves the memory of your ancestors who rest there. It is a vital setting, making it possible to see each individual's life as part of a greater web of relationships. And this really speaks to our Trinity too, doesn't it? Relationships with the Creator, with the human community, with all living species, and with the earth, our common home. All this leads you to seek interior and exterior harmony, to show great love for the family, and to possess a lively sense of community. Again, the 7 themes. Then too, there are the particular riches of your languages, your cultures, your traditions, and your form of art. They represent a patrimony that belongs not only to you, but to all of humanity, for they are expressions of our common humanity. So you can see in the writing, this is Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti. It's integrated. It's the wisdom that our Holy Father is bringing into the world. And it follows a deep tradition within the church. Because Karl Rahner was a student of Gordini, and Pope Benedict, when he was a cardinal, was a student of Gordini, who was considered the Green Pope. And Gordini just goes back into our ancient traditions. So it's fascinating. If you look at the footnotes in Laudato Si, you keep saying Gordini, Gordini, Gordini. So this is really calling us to look at how do we respect those traditions, those indigenous traditions around the world, and to listen. Nostra Aetate calls us to that.
I want to say a few things about what you think is out there, institutions in the world that are kind of doing Laudato Si. And I'll go first because I've been very impressed with CEJA, the energy legislation here in Illinois. It is the Climate and Equity bill and Equitable Jobs bill, and you've got, when you think about energy legislation in the past, it never had anything to do with equity. It never had anything to do with low-income people. These were energy bills, and now we've got a bill that is going to include everyone in an energy transition. And when you they're putting good money towards it all over the state. And when you step back and think about it, that's really cool. That is bringing a social justice mission into, what used to be, dopey energy legislation. It's a cool wedding, and it happens largely because environmental groups got together with environmental justice groups, and over the course of years, got to understand each other and understand the different needs that the different communities have, and be one voice and speak with one voice and speak in a community that mattered. And I thought it was it's an impressive achievement when you look at it.
Yes, it is. Chapter 5 really calls us to action in Laudato Si, and to see, in Cardinal Supich says this, everything is political. And so by that conversion of heart, then we're called to action in terms of our own life, in terms of our own parish, in terms of our own church, and then external in terms of what are we doing in terms of having a more just world. And Catholic social teaching calls us into that. What was interesting, Pope Francis a few years ago called the leaders of the oil companies together to the Vatican, along with the big money like BlackRock and Carlyle Group. I mean, the real big money, pension funds for Tokyo. And the Pope came in, and it was hosted by the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. And he's like, look, here's the deal. Here's the science. This is our church's teachings. This is our truth. And what are you going to do about it? And at first they were kind of hemming and hawing, like, what are we doing here? How do we get out of this pickle? And I won't say who, because I'm not allowed to, but some leader of a large pension fund said, I can no longer tell my grandchildren what I'm doing. And I am not going to invest in your companies anymore. So, okay. And then that group, and they had the CEOs of like Royal Dutch Shell, BP, all these ExxonMobil, Total, like the big oil companies. And they said in that declaration that climate change is real, we're the cause of it, we're a primary cause of it, and we have to keep the temperature down to 2.0, which is not the right temperature, it should be 1.5, 2.0, and that we're gonna move to a just transition. So that document came out. How are they doing that? A lot of people say, divest from fossil fuels, divest from fossil fuels. And there's an argument for that. But also, when you get into the weeds, what they'll do, the big energy companies, they'll offload that risk because they don't want to deal with it. So as those technologies or those elements become age, they'll sell them to smaller companies that don't care. And then they'll burn baby burn on methane, or so it's not a simple solution. So one argument is stay at the table, make sure you're a stockholder, and then get in there and argue for what is a just transition, and to do that quickly. And so Shell, and there's greenwashing all over here, okay? So I don't want to make it sound pretty. But part of their incentive packages for their executives is how they're moving towards that transition. But then you have, today in the New York Times, there was this whole piece on Biden's climate change piece, and it's being slaughtered. You know, we have the war in Ukraine, there's all this need for oil, the prices of oil are up. So in one breath, you have to say we have to invest in renewables now. And at the second breath, they're saying we need energy right now. People that are very angry about the current energy price, and we want to stay in power. And how do we do this? How do you manage that and manage that at the same time? It's not easy. It's really complex. But we don't have any choice. Nature doesn't care whether we get it right or not. Right? I mean, in the geological formation, I don't know if any of you have been out west, you look at the canyons and you look at, well, this is 4.5 billion years old Precambrian stone. You're like, wow, you know, and you're like, wait a minute, we're like this little tiny thin layer that's been around for not a very long time. And if we don't get it right, they're going to have, well, this is the Anthropocene period, and it'll be full of plastic and radiation. right? So it's coming either way. We're already past certain thresholds. So then there's the question of mitigation. And by the way, since 1970, 68%, I'm forgetting my number, of animals have become extinct. That's all biodiversity thing and the climate change, two things interrelated, habitat. So you have this environmental catastrophe going on, and we're living our way into that. So then there's the adaptation. So what are we going to be doing when we have migration? If we think we have a migration problem now, this is nothing, right? You think we have people with suffering? This is nothing. You know, it's like that's the big tsunami coming. But our minds can only think short term. What's the immediate threat? So how do we shift that to be able to say, yes, there's an immediate threat, but also there's this much bigger wave coming. So yes, there are positive things that are happening there, but it calls us in our Catholic faith then to get beyond ourselves, get beyond the short term, and to say, what is it about the next generation, the next generation? And again, it goes back to that spiritual conversion, being united in Christ, to call the world out and say, no, this is the right thing to do. This is who we are. Because our whole mission is to manifest God's divine love.
We've been at it for an hour here or so, and I don't know, questions? Do we want to talk a little bit? Have any conversation or any people thoughts that you're having? I'll ask another question, Michael, just for the fun of it. I mean, we see a lot of institutions that are trying on the energy field. Like you take a Walmart, they have a lot of solar panels. They have Apple and Microsoft, they all want to be 100% net clean energy, but they don't seem to live the other half of the Laudato Si vision, the social justice vision, as easily. They don't want, Amazon does not want any unions, but will buy a lot of electric cars. There's kind of an energy sector greenwashing thing that companies do, and they do it because they make a buck. I was on a panel with a guy with the sustainability guy from Walmart, and I said, you're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you doing all these energy things. I've got an idea for you. Porous pavers in your parking lot. Would you do porous pavers in your parking lot? I know it costs more. It costs a little more, but it would be such a big thing for the planet to have every Walmart parking lot drain and not run off. And you'd set a huge example. And he was like, well, we'll talk. Let's talk about that. You wouldn't say, I mean, that was kind of not something that was in their wheelhouse, something that was going to cost a lot of money, and it was going to be good, but it was not going to pay like a bunch of solar panels were.
Right. Well, I think you're raising the right questions, Jerome. You know, the UN has a Sustainable Development Goals. Many companies are plugged into that. Many companies have chief sustainability officers. You have, I forget what the acronym is, but essentially it's about environmental, social, and there's that whole ethical side of the house. And their purpose for existing for many of these companies is to satisfy the stockholder, right? So their executives are rewarded in terms of how their quarterly returns are, because they're responsible to all those people, have all those investments. So I think, again, the challenge for us is to keep showing up at the table. And if you're a stockholder or if you're an advocate, is to stand up for what are our beliefs, because we are the consumers and we're the ones who are not only the owners, but also the consumers and the employees. And we're in it together. And I wish there's a short-term solution for that. But these conversations are examples of what we need to be doing more of and how we can be in solidarity to being able to point specifically to different issues. And it doesn't, whatever it is, gun violence, poverty, not enough nutrition, respect life, immigration, whatever those items are, it's all part of the whole. And we have a moral and religious imperative to keep pursuing that. That's all I can. Maybe some of you have other ideas around what we should be doing on that.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Sister Judith, do you wrap it up, or do you wrap it up, or how do we stop?
I guess a question for all of us here. What are some of, when you heard what was being shared, I've been busy doing all the talking, right? I'm just curious what some of your reactions were or are. How does it, something that maybe emerged for you?
I think I feel challenged because we talk to each other in the community. How could we get involved in parishes? We don't ordinarily, we're not members of parishes, except when it's an exception.
That's beautiful. That's fantastic. Thank you. So at the Archdiocese, for example, we have the Care for Creation Ministry, and in that we have a Laudato Si Action Platform Committee. And that committee are volunteers, and we're working as hard as we can to accompany parishes and to support them. And if you would like to be involved with this ministry, welcome. All of you is welcome. We need you. We need your wisdom. We need your spirituality. We need your brilliance. When Jerome said we're going to have this conversation today, I'm like, everybody in there is smarter than I am. They're all these are my teachers. And so, yes. Yes. Oh. What parish? Oh, St. Clement. Fantastic. Tony's already working with St. Clement. Get involved. You're in. You're in. It's great. So how you can find out too is at the it's archchicago.org/creation. And that's it. And it'll take you right to that site. And then all the material for the platform is there, and it has links to the Vatican, and will drive you through the whole thing. Some of it needs to be, there are some guidelines in terms of how things have to be by requirements. So some of it might seem like, oh, this isn't organized quite right. Apology for that. We're working on that. Yes.
Michael, every second Tuesday, the city comes by and empties the blue garbage recycling carts. Other of us are cautious about putting the paper in there and out the pickle jar. We have any idea what the city's actually doing with that?
Jerome knows better than me.
It's bad on plastic. They're not really Really only plastics 1 and 2 get recycled. And the paper probably, could get recycled. Yeah, it depends upon paper markets and stuff. Recycling is, it's a pretty broken game. All your aluminum cans are like gold. They all get recycled. But it just depends upon what thing you put in there. I talked with a guy from Lakeside Recycling once, and I said, "What's really, really working?" And he goes, "Scrap wood. Scrap wood. We've got a great circular economy going. A lot of it goes into pet beds. A lot of it goes into this other stuff. We've got all these local people. It's like they're recycling like 100% of their scrap wood." And I'm like, I didn't even think of that, but they're like, there are. And he said there's, it's only 1 or 2% of the waste stream or something, but it's a lot of wood, and there is a lot of tear down scrap things that come in. So it almost defies our imagination to understand what's going on with recycling.
Wood's not even on the list of things.
I know this is like an industrial wood. It's like for those guys, when you get a scrap thing, and you put the construction guys put it in there. That wood is working. But good.
So blue card is a feel-good thing, as opposed to a doing.
I heard that 90% of plastic doesn't get recycled. And that it's actually, tell me if I'm wrong, Jerome, and that it's the petroleum industry, because they see the future of electric cars, are now shifting a lot of their business strategy towards plastics.
Yeah, the 90% thing is what I hear too. And it's just 1 and 2. And the others are all like experimental greenwashing projects that they have. It's well, in this case, it's something that the plastics companies do to say, yes, look at this new project where we're going to recycle all your styrofoam, which is imminently unrecyclable. And then they make some kind of little thing out of it, and use an enormous amount of energy in a completely unreplicable way, and they know it. And then they tell everybody, we're on our way to styrofoam recycling, and it's BS. It's just, yeah. Come again? Like the lined cardboard bottles, those lined cardboard bottles are becoming more popular and I think are more recyclable. So you get there's a lot more of those out these days, and oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's in our bodies. What was the one about the plastic in our blood? It's unbelievable. We're experimenting radically with our living beings on in this planet with plastic, and it's bad. I try to reduce my plastic constantly, and I can't even say I'm being wildly successful. I use soap bars, shampoo bars. I have all these bamboo toothbrushes, and it's up and down the line, but I still got a bunch of plastic in my recycling bin at the end of the week. You go to the store, it's a terrible conundrum. We've got to demand more zero waste. Have you guys been to the zero waste store in Evanston? Echo and the Flamingo? It's a zero waste store. And there's one on the north side, and they're kind of popular in Europe. This woman saw them in Europe all over the place, and they brought them here, and she started one. I want to start one in Chicago. So she started one kind of by Lincoln Square. It's called Echo and the Flamingo. And if you go in, you can get bulk grains, bulk coffee. You bring all your own containers. So I've been going there and buying stuff. You can get bulk vinegar and lotions. I've been putting all my lotions in a jar, and a jar, and you can go in there and squirt stuff in the jar, and then you don't have to have your own plastic jar. And they've got all the little things, the razors, the toothbrushes, so it's kind of a fun store to go into. And they just opened one in Evanston. You've been in there? And yeah. Echo and the Flamingo, I think. ECO and the Flamingo. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Pastas and things. You can buy pastas and hard goods. It's it's fun. I would like to bring that into our way of life. I would like everybody to have zero waste stores.
So these individual actions are really important, and absolutely we need to move in that direction, but it's also our collective action. And so how do we come together in solidarity in terms of the transformation of our church and of the world? So that connecting the dots with all those other ministries, so they can say, wait a minute, what I'm doing is a part of this, because it's all connected is really important. So I really appreciate your question of, can we get involved? Yes. In the Parliament, we were working with the UN and Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology and George Mason University's on the Center for Communication and Climate Change. And Ed Maybach, and they go do these deep dives in research. And their piece is, there's three primary things in climate change communication. One, you have to have a clear and simple and consistent message. Two, you have to repeat it often. And three, it has to be from a trusted source. Right? So the church has a clear message. And sisters, you are a trusted source. You are a trusted source. So to bring that into the world is essential, because it's about that conversion of our hearts. And then go, wait a minute, okay, right? Let's get everybody together on this. So it's really an invitation for us to be doing it together. And on that note, we're the Archdiocese, and this is being used as a pilot for the U.S. Catholic Church with the Catholic Climate Covenant, is having an ecological, and social justice. Ecological and social justice is loving God and our neighbors. Integral ecology and creation care retreat for young adults. And that's April 29th to May 1st. Right? And it's going to be out at Loyola's Ecological Campus. So my hope is that you can help us identify young adults, and that's between 18 and 39, who are maybe potential leaders that could attend this retreat. And there's no charge to whatever you can afford. It's one of those things, so we won't deny anybody. But if we could work together in terms of identifying some young adults in parishes or in this area, that would be a gift, because then it's the next generation, right? Mhm. 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 Yep. 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 Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. No, I know, I don't, I think we should put it in the bins. They'll at least get rid of it responsibly. And occasionally sell it for money. You know, I mean, the paper, sometimes I think they don't recycle it, but sometimes they do. I mean, it's,
Thought that we were in this house doing a good job by anything that had been triangle, but it wasn't just one or two.
the triangles do not mean that it is recyclable. It means, it just identifies the kind of plastic it is. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those don't really get recycled, you know, or just occasionally a little bit. So it's the stuff that's useful is 1 and 2. But
Shall we close in prayer? And this is from Laudato Si. So we have 2 choices. We can do a prayer for our earth, which is universal, includes everyone, or a Christian prayer in union with creation. Which one would you? Anyone? One? Okay. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
thank you.